In the studio today, we've got a very important guest, and I know I keep saying it. All our guests are very important. Her name is Pearl, and she's a senior WHS manager in one of the top distribution companies in the world, actually.
How did this journey start?
Okay, so for me, in terms of my safety journey, I started I'll just say right around when I finished NYSC.
Okay.
So I was in Nigeria in 2007.
Okay.
I'd done my NYSC. For those of you who, live in Nigeria, you know what NYSC is. You have to serve the government for a year. Luckily, I was able to get a bank job.
Okay.
However, I knew, banking wasn't for me. It was either a path in health and safety or going back to medical
What was
school.
your first degree?
Biochemistry.
Was the money not much? Why did you say banking is not for you? Or
Okay.
like,
Well, the money was good,
Yeah.
but for me, I just felt it was a
were
distraction.
you in marketing?
I was in CCBG, yes,
Ah,
consumer banking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So were you one of us that wanted to go in for medicine, but then JAM didn't allow us go for medicine, so we settled for microbiology.
Something
and
like that. I
biochemistry.
wouldn't say jam.
Yes,
My
yes,
jam
yes.
was good, but I
Yes.
just didn't have connections.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I was
What
hoping.
year was your
was
jam?
sister in this? Was sisters in this?
What year was your jam? Don't say your sisters. We don't know your jam score yet. What year was your jam?
I think 2020. Why do I keep saying 2020? 2002.
Seven.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
2002.
What year was your jam?
2001. 2002, I think. I got into uni 2002.
So your jam could
Actually.
have been 2000. It's 2000.
I finished.
It could have
I
been. It
finished.
depends.
Yeah, I
2000.
finished.
Yeah.
So my
Secondary
jam got
school.
me into school,
2001.
but I wasn't able to. You had to have connection in
Connections.
Nigeria,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
medical school. So I was hoping. They told me, once you smash your year one, we'll look at
They'll
your
let you
results,
cross,
and then you can
yeah.
cross
Yeah.
And then you
over.
smash.
Year
we
one
was together.
came, my
Yeah.
results were beautiful.
And then they can't let
But
you
then-
go
And then
because you're the best student.
no connections,
Yeah.
and every time I saw someone in a white lab coat, I would cry my eyes
Oh.
out because I just used to feel like this is the sport I should be in,
Yeah.
and I don't
Bless
have
you.
that opportunity. But that went very quickly. It was 4 years of biochemistry. Thankfully, I never had a carryover. I was top of my class, and then I was then debating whether to go to medical school in America. But I had a brother-in-law who worked in Cadbury as a
Okay.
WHS manager.
Yeah.
And for me, every time he came back, spoke about work, how he used to work with people in multinationals, visiting from different countries.
Yeah.
I just thought it was fascinating. And so I started thinking about, okay, if I can't get into medical school or not wanting to go into banking full time, maybe I should consider doing health and safety in oil and gas. Everybody
The oil
wants
and
to
gas
work in
dream.
oil and
Sisters
gas.
in
The
this.
oil and
Yes,
gas
we were
dream.
sisters
Very
in
similar
this.
stories,
Yes.
right? So I did a couple of courses with some guy who worked in Mobile and then was running courses on the side
Yeah.
in Lagos. I found it really interesting, and so I said, you know what, let me see what options are out there. So I finished my banking school with Access Bank. I applied to University of Salford and a few other universities. Salford seemed quite good in terms of the syllabus when they sent it
Yeah.
over, and I said, I'm just going to go for this. So I came to the UK.
So it was never about which city is the least expensive or where the housing
No,
is cheap or anything.
expense wasn't a problem really for my dad, to be honest. I
Yeah.
think I was the first to want to go abroad,
Yeah.
and he was just excited about the
Okay.
idea because for him, he always thought I could do more with my life. He was
Yeah.
keen for me to go to medical school.
Yeah.
I had
Okay.
disappointed them by not
Oh,
wanting
okay.
to do medical
Yeah.
school anymore.
Yeah.
So he's just like, off you go, whatever you want to do now. So I came in 2008 to the UK, University of Salford. I was there for a year and a bit for the master's program. Thoroughly enjoyed it. However, just before we finished, I was applying for jobs, checking online to see what they were asking for in those roles. And I realized that everyone was looking for the NEBOSH. And every time I spoke to a recruiter to say, I've got a master's, they're like, okay, master's in health and safety. It wasn't really something that they understood very well. So they kept on asking for NEBOSH. And I'm like, I have a master's, it's higher.
I think they didn't. That also happened. I think most of them at that time didn't quite get
No.
that. Oh, okay. All they thought was, oh, Nibosh was the highest. We need a
Yes.
Nibosh. Yeah.
So
No, I think that it's not like the new Nibosh was the highest. It's because the hiring, a lot of these recruitment agencies always stick to the script given to them
yes.
by the company they're hiring for, and a lot of those companies they just copy and paste job description online, and it says Nibosh, and Nibosh is there. And for me, I think, and then when they say you don't have Nibosh, I was like, let me remind you, fellow, Nibosh, especially if it's general, is level 3 at best. Diploma is level 5. Masters is level 7. So I tried to tell them what it is.
Education.
I tried to educate them, but I don't think it went really far, to be honest.
Yeah,
That
I
makes
did
sense.
my best. I think I had a script. I had a wiki link, which I will always share after that call, just to help them understand better.
Yeah, okay.
So for me, I applied to a couple of jobs. You get the, very leading interviews where they will tell you, oh, I think it went well, and then you get a rejection letter.
Did you say you applied to just a couple of jobs?
A couple of jobs at some point,
Yeah.
because I think just before I submitted my dissertation and then had the graduation, I was just testing the waters,
Yeah.
just to see, what they were asking for.
Yeah.
And, everyone would say, okay, apply for the job, and once you get your results, come back to us. But all those, kind of went dead in the track. And I think when I then finished, like, got my certificates, I enrolled for the NEBOSH because I just felt like I'll be doing myself a disservice
If you didn't have it.
if I didn't have this thing everyone was asking for. So immediately I got it. Thankfully, when I was doing my master's, there was one company that reached out to one of our senior lecturers then, and he then sent a message out saying this organization is looking for a HSEQ coordinator, and they've reached out, and I just applied immediately. It was in Bolton.
Okay.
So I got the job, thankfully,
Oh.
and that was my first safety job after all the no's.
Yeah.
But it was quite short-lived because for me, again, as you can imagine, it was my first role.
Yeah.
Coming into safety, high expectations because you have a master's. Everyone else who was my manager and my manager's manager didn't have any
Anything,
qualifications
yeah.
whatsoever.
Okay.
And I just feel like it could have gone better in terms of how I worked in that organization. But because it was my first role, high expectations, just so many things that had not been picked up over the years, it just kind of fizzled out. So I got married, and then I had to move away from that area into London.
When you said it kind of just fizzled out, do you want to expatiate on that? What challenges did you face? Because it seems like you faced some obstacles, or it didn't work well as you would have expected it to work.
So for me, I think with the masters, you kind of learn a lot about compliance, and for me, because it was my because it was my first
theory
role
against practice.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
So every time I wrote an email, I was quoting legislation,
Oh yeah,
and that was a
theory
massive.
And that was
against
rubbing
practice.
off against people in the wrong
exactly, and
line.
that wasn't how the culture of the organization was.
Okay.
But for me, I just felt I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And now I know better. And again, if you're new into the industry and you kind of try to learn the culture, try to learn the organization, and then start communicating it in their style to some degree.
Yeah.
So I think looking back, those were the kind of things that I feel maybe, I could have taken a step back and kind of understood. But for me, that was my foundation. I learned a lot in terms of how, safety works in the real world. And then I got married. We had to move to London, and that's when I joined cancer research.
Okay.
So again, I started looking for another opportunity, and then I landed my first manager job in MHRA.
Yeah.
What are those qualities really? Being serious, what are those qualities? What would you say? Oh, you know what? Let's put our best foot forward. You're going in for an interview. This is what you need to, and this is not just for health and safety. It's great that we're all three of us are into health and safety, but we can translate it to other jobs. What do you think are those attributes that you will say, oh, are you looking for your first job, or maybe you're looking to move, or even within an organization, due for a promotion or stuff? What qualities would you say, oh, you know what, these are the things that you most likely want to run with?
So in terms of qualities, I would say when you go for an interview, you never really know what the questions will be.
Yeah.
It's more or less
Just be
your
prepared.
ability to respond, and the person who is receiving that, you're ticking those boxes, because you never really know. I've sat in interview panels, and what people raise as a defining factor or a deciding factor at the end, you'll be really surprised. Even though you sat in the same panel and you listened, and someone else is giving feedback on what they've heard, and you're like, okay,
Are we hearing the same
did
thing?
that really play out the way you said it?
Yeah.
But all I will say is, for every single interview I've gone for, I've always been prepared. And when I mean preparation, I always think of all the examples of things that I've done, and I play it out again and again and again and again. Honestly, preparation is important. I would never go into an interview if I'm unprepared. And another thing which I've leveraged on is on LinkedIn. So I always reach out to someone within that organization with a similar role title, if there is, and I ask questions. So, you work in this organization, is there anything you could share with me? I have
Well, I
applied
need
to a
to
role
know,
here,
yeah.
and I'm quite interested in it. And if they're willing to respond, fine. If they don't respond, but I know I've put in
Some effort there.
some effort to find out a bit
Yeah.
more, and asking the right questions. If there's also an opportunity where it says you can speak to the hiring manager, and there's a hiring manager's number or
Details in there.
email,
Yeah.
I would reach
Go
out.
for it. Yeah.
Because for me, like in life, you never know. Like, until you try, you
Yes.
never know. And I
Yeah.
just feel like if you don't try,
Your answer
you're
is a no.
shooting yourself. Like, you're
In the
not
foot,
helping
yeah.
yourself get
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
And I always ask for feedback. So,
Yeah.
have I answered the questions correctly, or what are your expectations? I always ask for feedback. Some
Good.
companies provide, some
Some
don't.
don't. Yeah.
And then also, when I go for interviews, I have at least 6 questions that I want to ask the manager or the hiring manager for the role, or the panel, whoever is speaking to me on the day, because I just feel like showing that keen interest goes a long way to cementing
Yeah.
that opportunity.
Yeah.
And one final question which I always ask is, what's your management style? I think we shouldn't be scared to ask questions to these people, because it's a two-way relationship.
Yeah.
They're asking to know about you.
Yeah.
You should also be
Know
asking
about,
to know
yeah,
about them.
yeah.
And
yeah.
when they say, oh, they do this or they do that, this is how they work, and I say, I think that sits really well with my own values, and I think we could work together. So
Together.
sometimes you can also end that interview by saying, is there any doubt you have in me at the moment, based on what I've said to you, that you feel
I may not be right.
I
for
have
the
not
job.
addressed so far? Do you have any doubts so far? Is there anything you want me to elaborate on? And oftentimes, many of them are taken aback,
Yeah.
because I know they are thinking. They don't have a blank canvas in their head. They are thinking as we go along,
Yeah.
Yeah.
making up conclusions as we go along throughout the stage of the interview. So you just want to make sure that you haven't left any room untouched, or
Yeah,
you've
any
not
stone
left any
unturned,
room for any ambiguity, or,
Yeah.
or as they say.
Well,
So
it's quite interesting
Yeah.
with what you said there. There's another question I was going to ask you, which I will still. But when I did training on interviewing skills, so as part of my leadership training, we had to go through interview questions and the company's way, anyways, with the values and ethics of the company. And one of the things they said is, if you ever ask a questions like you did in terms of, is there anything that I haven't been able to convince you, any doubt, we're never to give the answer. We're just meant to like play blank and say, no, we're okay with your answers. Probably, I don't know if the reasons. There's another thing as well. If a candidate is asked a question and the candidate is not giving us the answer that we want,
expecting.
we should not probe and give them the direction to that answer. We should just basically ask those questions. We can ask the question again, but not leading. Not leading.
I think every organization has their style, to be honest, because sometimes you might have a candidate, and sorry to digress, you might have a candidate, because I've done multiple interviews, and you see that person is really nervous. they probably have good examples, but because of that interview pressure, they are not able to draw on them and,
Yeah.
articulate it very clearly.
Yeah.
So you might lead to a certain point and then leave them, to run with it. But for me, I just feel like we know what interviews are like.
Yeah.
We've been through them
Yes.
over and over again.
Yes.
If
Yes.
it's just a little nudge that you give here and there in terms of your wording or just to help them focus a
Yeah,
bit
because
more,
that might
I think that
actually
will
just be
help.
your right candidate, to be
Yes.
honest. They're a bit too nervous to just get the best out of them. And sometimes I always say, I really try my best to make interviews as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
It flows better when it's more of a conversation
Sure,
rather
absolutely.
than the answer, answer question, answers.
Interrogation.
Interrogations.
I think
that's
we're
the word.
talking about two different things now. I don't want us to confuse it. Now, making a candidate feel relaxed is totally different from leading a candidate on. Because if you lead, you're not going to be doing that to other candidates. So you might be giving a certain candidate an unfair advantage because then
Yeah.
if you're not sticking to the questions, it's not the same interview.
Yeah, of course.
And that's the reason why
Okay,
they
I
said
get
that.
I get it from that
yeah,
perspective
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Okay.
And from what you said in terms of what you bring to the table during the interviews, why she got the job, you said something that really resonates with me, which is really critical. You're saying when you get there, you don't know what they need. You don't know what the hiring manager is looking for.
Yeah.
You can only do the best you can based on some of those examples you gave. Because one of the things is each hiring manager come to an interview looking for something.
Yes.
At least the good ones. I don't think it's all of them that go into the interview looking for something. But most good hiring managers, they call it deal breakers. This is what I'm looking for in this next person. So they could have had an experience with a last team member that they don't want to have with
And
this
that's
new
the
team member.
pointers you're looking
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the-
So,
yeah.
and then you might come in and presenting the same trait as the guy that just left or the lady that just left. They're definitely not going to pick you. It's not that you're not good enough,
That's
but
true.
they've seen something in that person. They don't want that repetition in their team. So you could be a very outspoken person. You could be very, passionate. And sometimes being passionate could be seen as being aggressive sometimes when it crosses the line. So, and maybe they had that on their team and it didn't go down too well. They're not going to pick the next passionate person.
Similar.
The hiring manager would try as much as possible to pick somebody that's more subtle in their personality so that they can fit well into that team. So if you're hearing this out there, and you can go in there and put your best foot forward, just like Per said, but the hiring manager has got deal breakers. And if they don't pick you, it doesn't mean that you can't
You're
do the
not
job.
good enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that
Yeah,
you're not good enough.
yeah.
It just sometimes, as well, are beyond the obvious anyways. Sometimes it just means that there's something they're looking for in that team that you do not have at that time.
Yeah.
Or there's something you bring to the table that they do not need
At
that time.
You've got the first job, you've gone over to cancer research, which was really more primarily admin.
Yes, safety admin.
And then after that, what next?
She
I
went
got
to NHRS.
MHRS.
It's the
Okay.
Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, civil service. So it was my first civil service job and my first managerial role. So I was looking after MHRA and then I had at some point NIBS.
So you were in civil service.
Yes.
I've heard this thing about once you go into civil service, people most times just go into civil
Stay.
service and they just stay.
I really
Yeah.
liked MHRA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we then moved out of London again. And
Oh, okay. So that's why you.
so that's why I left. So I was there up until when I was still working in London, commuting into London from my current base.
Okay.
And, it just got to a point I couldn't do that anymore. And so I had to leave. But MHRA was a wonderful, wonderful job. I was health and safety manager there, looking after a diverse portfolio of labs, offices, and workers who were remote. So inspectors who were going around the country doing pharmaceutical inspection. So again, just really different from what I've done. And for the first time in my life, my biochemistry degree was
Became
used.
useful.
For the first time ever, I got to use it, to some degree. But again, I really, really liked my job. Great relationship with the facilities teams, with the inspectorates, with all the other functions within the organization. I really, really liked my job. But As it
You had to
happened,
leave.
we got a mortgage somewhere outside of London, and I had to move with the family. So I commuted for at least 4 to 6 months, and then I couldn't do it anymore. And then I got the next role. So it was Coca-Cola European
Enterprise,
partners.
yeah.
Well, it was Enterprise, and then
Yeah.
changed to European partners. So I was there, safety manager. It was supposed to be a full-time role, but it became fixed-term contract for a year. So I was there supporting the operations team and the field technical services team.
How did that go?
Yes, because
Yeah,
we had
go
a
on.
conversation about it many
Yes.
years after that. And then one of the things I heard is, yo, you dodged a bullet. So tell me how massive was this bullet that I dodged?
For me, as you can imagine, it was not advertised as a fixed term contract role. It was
Yes.
advertised as a permanent full-time role.
Yeah.
And then so I got my contract, and then 2 days later I get another contract saying it's a fixed term role. So I ring up the agency and I'm like, what's going on here? Only for them to say, oh, sorry, this. They didn't get approval. Now, because I'd already signed in the contract, they have to honor it, but it can only be fixed term. Anyway, so it was a 1-year contract, and when it came to extending, they made the decision not to extend.
Yeah.
But I think the business was shutting down some of its operations, and they needed to spread out the team a bit more.
You can imagine the kind of devastation it would have had on someone like myself who was on a work permit. So which means I had 60 days to start
find
looking to
another
find another
someone.
job, or would have
Yeah.
had to leave the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, for me, I don't. I think I saw that role come up a few times, but I don't know what's happened. I think everybody I know has moved on to other things in the organization. But
So is it kind of like an organization that was a revolving door in terms of their culture?
yeah, so they had a lot of safety managers prior to me joining, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I think people would just come, not like it, and then move on. I think there were so many factors. Again, I can't disclose, but I think for me, it had a lot of opportunities because, as you can imagine, Coca-Cola Enterprise, it's a global company, bottling company, and there are lots of opportunities to go to the bottling plant, to go to the distribution center. But that particular role, in my opinion, I was the only person servicing the operations center and the field technical services. There was only one of that role, and for them to make the decision not to extend the contract got everyone really confused. But we later found out that they were downsizing, lots of restructuring, and again, I think the bottling company that was the bottling plant, that was a few miles
away
down
from it, yeah.
closed completely.
Okay.
The regional distribution center that was further down on the next junction to where we live also shut down. So there was a lot of changes that were happening, and we just kept on hearing this is shutting. So when they refused to extend the contract, I really could understand.
Yeah.
The business kind of had some foresight a year before. That's why they changed the contract.
The contract,
to the fixed term.
So you moved on from there.
So I moved on from there. There was this nice opportunity that popped up. It was for Network Rail.
Okay.
As a health and safety, well, not health and safety manager, it was area health and safety advisor.
Okay.
But it's a regional role. That's how they're classed. So it was a regional role. I was covering the London Northwest, LNW. That's how we call it. So LNW South. So I saw the job, and where it says essential criteria, and it had six
desirable.
things. 6 things, and out of the 6, I had only 2.
Yeah.
I think it was safety, knowledge, and a degree or something. I think there was only 2 things I had. All the other things were rail related, and for me, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to apply.
Oh.
And this is the boldest step I'd ever made because I had no
real experience,
experience, and all the other 4 things they were asking for. I had no Scooby-Doo what they were even. So I went on LinkedIn in usual style, reached out to some guy that had the similar title as the role I applied for, but he said it was in Carlisle. So I was like, oh, no chance at all that we would be in the same area
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So I asked him a question like, "Oh, I've applied for this job. I'm really keen. Could you talk me through about the job? Just let me know what everything is about. I've just applied. I have out of the six, I have only two." And then he said, "Oh, hi. Thanks for reaching out. By the way, I will be interviewing you." At this point, I didn't know whether to just withdraw my application and look for something else. But I just said to myself, you know what? It can only go right.
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen?
Right now?
Exactly,
Like, you can either go left or left or right. It's like,
either way, it's okay.
it's okay. But so that morning, I got ready for the interview.
So did he give you any advice?
No, he didn't.
He just said, "I'll be interviewing you."
He
Yeah, because it's to be conflict of
Yeah,
interest, isn't it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Unfair advantage
Yeah.
as
Of
well.
all the people you picked,
Yeah, you
had
think
to
the
be
hiring
him.
manager, and they've not even sent you the invitation at that point, so you don't even know the name of the person that's going to be interviewing you.
I didn't know who was
Yeah.
interviewing me. So I just say, you know what? Anyway, so I got ready for the interview. For whatever reason, the roads were just horrible that day. So I was a few minutes late. I was frazzled. I got into the room. It was him. And he's like, "Nice to meet you." I wasn't sure whether I had to say...
We talked on LinkedIn. We
It
chatted
was
on
so
LinkedIn.
awkward. And he was smiling. And my manager then, she was being supported by him because he was covering the north.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was covering the south.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
the role was going to cover the south. So I had the interview, and they said right off the bat that when they spoke to me, I was the first person they interviewed, and they made the decision that I was getting the job. So everyone else they saw that week
Yeah,
was
you
just
just
like,
nah, yeah,
it was a waste of time for them because they had found the right person. So
yeah,
I got the job, thankfully. And for me, I had no experience in real, and I had to, learn a lot very quickly. So I had 4 direct reports, and thankfully, I couldn't have asked for a better team because these guys had been in the business for donkey years. I think there was one who actually retired. I retired under me when I was his manager, and he had been in the business for 40 years. Wow. He was my stronghold. We still keep in contact. We're still on WhatsApp. He still messages me, shares all his pictures, and I do the same. But those are people that held me in that organization because I had no idea what I was doing when I started. And he will sit down very patiently and explain everything.
Did you ask for it, or they did it out of their own?
I think they were generally nice people.
Yeah.
And for me, they were way older than I was.
Yes.
And they probably just felt sorry for me, like I'm their daughter or something. This could be my granddaughter, or this could be my daughter. And they just gave me all the love and support. Even when I didn't know terminologies, because one
rails are
acronym,
different acronyms.
one acronym could mean 10 different things.
Yeah.
So they would send me links and links, as in my bookmark was full. But those 4 direct reports I had, like, they were wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful people.
Probably because you were a wonderful manager as well.
Well, I think it's just being human. Being a manager is how would you want someone to treat you?
Yeah.
And for me, that's the recipe. Every time someone says, "Why are your scores really good?" Because we have, where I work at the moment, you're rated every month by your team, and my scores are really, really good. And everyone's, why? What are you doing? And I said, just be human.
Just buy pizza for the team
would
every
like
Friday.
To be treated? How would you like to be treated? To be honest,
like, it's only. I honestly, I really don't have an answer.
Yeah,
to
it's
that
a running joke when I say pizza. It's a running joke within my organization. That's what we do employee survey every year, and there's a site in the UK, our best site. Like, the people are always rating everything the highest. So when we sit down, we said, "Oh, we have to be like that site. All we just need to do is organize pizzas every Friday, and we're gonna get high scores."
Is that what they do? Do they
No,
organize
they don't.
pizza?
They don't. We just, but they, from time to time, he's the manager is the kind of person that likes to get his people together. So team meetings, and
events.
he puts refreshment, and that's, we just pick on that joke. But that was a good thing because when you go to that site, it's almost like a mafia clique. They support each other. That's in all of my time in health and safety, if they say there's going to be a site that will attain interdependency,
It will be
that
that
site will
side.
be that site.
Yeah. So, Pearl, you've talked about something now, being a good manager,
Yes.
and I think that with the other and I correct me if I'm wrong, with the other podcast, we've dwelled a lot on
Good and bad
groundwork.
manager.
Being the bottom line employee, or just talking about leadership. I think we haven't really looked at the managers.
Yeah.
Do you get? We haven't really said, okay, why? What does it take to be a good manager?
So for me, I think when I started, I always had, managers who didn't give me a lot of room to be creative,
Yeah.
a lot of room
So
to,
micromanaged.
yeah, a lot of room to think outside the
The
box.
box,
It's
yeah.
like, this is admin, this is what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And for me, I always said to myself, the day I become a manager,
Ah.
like I would give my team the time and the space to come up with ideas. I
Yeah.
would lead
Be
you,
creative.
but I want you to, I'll give you a problem statement, but I want you to find solutions.
Yes.
And that's how I've always been. Another thing I said I would always do as a manager is to train the team. Because every end of year appraisal, you'll be told, oh, sorry, there wasn't any budget. Let's try again next year.
Yeah.
I will put in something. Mid-year review comes again. Oh, sorry, I'm still waiting for approval. So all my courses that I did, I paid for them.
Yeah.
So all my NEBOSH courses, all the training I went for, they were all self-funded because I just used to think to myself, why am I always being promised and it never happens?
Yeah.
Why
So
do
I
you
always-
think that happened?
I don't
Is it
know.
everybody that never got training, or is it certain people?
I think for NEBOSH, they feel,
Yeah.
okay, you have a master's, why are you asking for
Yeah.
NEBOSH?
But what
So why
about
are you
the other
asking?
type of training then?
Well, most of it is like, okay, you've got a master's. But for me, I just feel I really don't know. But it's
Yeah.
all that false hope, that promise,
Yeah.
and it not
Yeah.
happening. So what I used to do, I would just stick it on a credit card.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying do that, but that worked for me.
Yeah.
I will stick it on a credit card, and then I know that this is, give me 1 year,
And then
Yeah.
I
pay
would
it off.
look for something else.
Yeah,
So
to pay
again,
it
that's
off,
a pay
yeah.
rise
So
or
investing
a
for the
benefit
future.
from the
Yeah.
company
Yeah.
in kind or cash,
Yeah.
and that would
Yeah.
help me offset that
Yeah.
spend.
So
Oh, okay.
in our network rail, you got promoted quite quickly as well to
Yes,
a manager. How did that
so-
happen?
For Network Rail, I was looking after LNW South, and then an opportunity came, and I took that role in route services. So it's like health and safety manager covering the whole country for route services. Pretty much what it was. I wasn't then looking after the maintenance or operations teams anymore in that region. I was looking after the whole country, and it was again a mixed portfolio: offices, training centers, delivery units, manual handling, material handling depots, aggregate handling depots. It was just fleet operation centers. It was just a big portfolio. Again, I had a team underneath me with an OH manager reporting into the role. For me, similar as to how I've always been in other roles, looking for ways to better the team, offering training, offering support, offering guidance. And oftentimes when you get into this role, every employee within that team has a negative sentiment towards their previous manager.
Yeah.
And again, it's a great opportunity to leverage on what they have shared, good or bad, and look for how you can meet those gaps and expectations. And always the first thing they say is, I want to grow, I want to develop. That's the first thing. And across all roles I've taken where I've managed or led people, that's what everyone, there's that appetite. So for me, I'm like, really? You want to learn? There's lots and lots of opportunities.
Yeah.
So first question, are you, registered with IOSH? Are you a member? And they're like, no, my manager never told me that was IOSH. Okay, so that's the starting point. So action number 1, be a member of IOSH. Action number 2, do you have a LinkedIn page? No, I don't have a LinkedIn page. Okay, let's start from there.
Let's brand.
Start rebranding yourself. Second question, okay, get feedback from all your stakeholders. Oh, they're going to write everything negative. I said that's the starting point.
Yeah.
It's feedback.
Yeah,
Anyways.
it's feedback.
If anybody you're asking puts anything down, good or bad, it's
Yeah.
for you to grow.
yes.
You don't
Yeah.
know how you're being perceived.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
how, those are the toolkits I come in with when I
Yeah.
start managing a new team, because I want you to be able to put a mirror in front of you and see what is being seen by others, because
Yeah.
you don't know
Yeah.
how you're coming across in meetings. And every
Yeah.
single
You're
day,
told.
in my opinion, particularly when you're applying for internal jobs, it's an interview day.
Yes.
Because if you've not behaved in a certain way as expected, when you then apply to another team, you will not be taken because you've been perceived in a certain way within the business or in the
Yeah.
team.
And so, yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of how we're perceived. And I think for people from our background, it's very important we get that feedback. We seek that feedback. We look for it, because that then tells us what area of ourselves we need to develop. And sometimes people might even be compelled to tell us what they've been thinking or what they've been telling their equals behind, and just say, oh, since you asked for it, let me just tell you as it is. And it's something that I've done in the past, which has really worked well for me. So,
And for me, what I always say to the team, you don't need to wait for the end of the year to know how you've been
Done.
or how you've done. It can be set every quarter, it can be set every 6 months. So every time I start a new job, in the first 6 months, I ask for feedback.
Yeah.
Because you want to know,
yeah.
you know,
How am I doing? What am I?
you have to know whether you're on track or you're off track, so you're not caught unawares,
Yes.
you know, at the end of the year. So those are the things in terms of supporting my team. One of the other thing is we then sit down, understand what their strengths and their weaknesses. What are you really scared of, like in safety? What do you not know? And we just go through a laundry list of safety topics. So is it COSH, is it fire? On a scale of 1 to 10, if I asked you to lead a session on these topics, which one would you really be nervous about? And then they tick, 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 tick. And we then start creating a plan. And then I use my team meetings as a training session. Like the first 30 minutes, we do team activities. And then the last 30 minutes is learning something new. So if it's pure, because some organizations, all the facilities management is with another team. So
Yeah.
even though it cuts across safety, we don't really get to do it ourselves. You know, all those things that may not be your everyday touch points, we make sure we try to get POCs or SMEs from those areas to attend our meetings and cover that. So there's always that opportunity to learn. And
I
then,
really like that.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that from you.
You're going to steal
Yeah,
that.
I'm going to steal
And
that
then,
from
you know,
you.
just also thinking about access to information. So I never want a situation, and this is what I say to the team all the time, I never want a situation where I'm off and you all can't make a decision without me. Honestly, I feel like I've failed. So the moment you know what you ought to be doing, which is your standard task, you should be working to the next level. So if you're a coordinator technician, you should be operating as a specialist. If specialist, you should be operating as a manager. As a manager, you should be operating as a senior manager. That's what I want to see. I don't want you to be buried in the KPIs of the sites. You know, that's not the be all end all. I want to see you focusing on the things that we have to get right, so we don't have a fatality. The things we have to do to get right, so we don't have, you know, a serious incident. Those are the kind of things. If the business says we should measure XYZ and we need to report on XYZ, yes, let's provide that to the business. But what are the bubbling issues that we need to be addressing on a daily basis so that these KPIs don't fall, like our early warning indicators? And those are the kind of things I always want the team to focus on.
Yeah.
So what I then do on the back of that is assign members of my team those areas. So I want you to look after first aid, everything that has to do with first aid, everything that has to do with fire. I want you to focus on everything that has to do with managing PITs or high yard operations. Everybody becomes a POC for something. And at the end of the year, we rotate.
Yeah.
So someone doesn't feel like I'm the master of this area.
So I'm a specialist in this. And
but it's an opportunity for everybody, and we use our team meetings just to give an update. So you're creating room for people to know something and know it very well. So
did you pick this up from somewhere, or you came up with this idea? Because this is really intentional. So two things you said in there. The first thing is upskilling your people
Yes.
by using your team meeting. So rather than death by PowerPoint, you guys are letting people be aware of certain topics within health and safety, and it could be project management, it could be anything where you think they might have deficiency, and also you're giving them a project, almost like this is your area of specialty in this site. So if we have a question on fire, we're going to be
We
coming
know
to
who
you.
to go to.
And
Yeah.
that's this year. And the next year, we're going to rotate that and give you manual handling. So you become
Yes.
expert
An
in that.
expert in that.
That's
So,
fantastic.
Which is growing them internally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
So I don't want to, and for every person who is leading something, so if you're leading MSDs, because one person is our MSD, POC, musculoskeletal, manual handling, all
Yeah.
that in the, DSC in that bucket.
When you say POC,
So person of contact or
Okay.
point of contact.
yeah,
So everything has to do with manual handling, DSC, ergonomics,
Yeah.
everything that sits in that bucket,
Yeah.
that
Is with that
person
person. Yeah.
looks after it. So this certain individual, then we then rotate. For every POC, there's a proxy. So
Yeah.
in the absence of this person,
you go to that.
Then this
This is
that
so-
person.
someone else in the background is being upskilled, copied
Yeah.
into the emails,
Yeah.
aware of the projects that are
Yes.
being run in that space.
Yes.
So for
and
me,
that's great actually.
communication, one
Yeah.
person looks
So
after communication.
did you come up with it yourself, or
Yes.
it's something that you saw?
So for me, like I said,
Yeah.
I didn't want a situation in my team where
One
somebody
person is
leaves
off, then
Yeah.
everyone
and
is,
everybody's like,
clueless.
it's chaotic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I want a situation where everyone is empowered. There's nothing like knowing something and knowing it well.
Yes.
I can't explain it. You have this sense of worth
Ownership.
Yeah.
and ownership when you walk into a room, everyone is listening to you. If you
Yeah.
don't know it, you don't know it. And as we've seen with our stakeholders and our partners in the offices that we work in, they will railroad you, like they will walk all over you the
Yeah.
moment you open your mouth and you say
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
isn't right,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
you know it isn't
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the more you know, the more confident you are,
Yes.
the more empowered you are
Yeah.
to, challenge respectfully. I'll use the
Yes.
key word respectfully in meetings.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, you will be quiet. If you don't give any value, the next time you will not be invited.
Yeah.
So I want a situation, and even to the apprentice. So I have apprentice that I manage. If you see the apprentice, you will not even know that they're apprentice. So for me, those are the things that make me really, really happy. Forget all the stuff that happens in the office and the challenges we face. But
The progress you
seeing
see in
my
people.
team
Yeah.
grow, develop, honestly,
Yeah.
it's a joy.
Yeah.
So now I have 2 people who have completed their NEBOSH. I had 2 people who came out of their apprenticeship with a distinction. When you see these success stories and they're attributing it to your drive, all the LinkedIn posts that they are saying, without my manager, and I'm like, oh,
that's
you
so
people,
encouraging.
you people
Yeah.
are just killing me
That's
right now.
so
But
encouraging.
honestly, that's all I always wanted when I was coming up in safety. Just someone to push me and push me and push me. And, there's a running joke that don't let Pearl catch you. If you don't know that thing and she asks you a question, you're in trouble. I mean, that kind of thing, like, Pearl asked you and you didn't know it. No. You need to hide yourself somewhere and go and read it before she asks you another question again. But
Yeah.
they know that I'm there for them. They
Yeah.
know that if there's I give you an example, we had an assessment and we identified that we had a gap in a certain area.
Yeah. And so looking at your career and even the current company that you work for, which I know personally, you've worked for a lot of big names.
Yes.
So in terms of BAME, what is the strategy, or what is your strategy when it comes to job application? Because for me, I look at where I can rise the highest or the fastest or the quickest, as you can put it. But it seems for you that you like big names. Tell us your strategy when it comes to job application.
So
I think for me, when it comes to roles, I always like bigger organizations because I just feel like there would be more to learn.
Yeah.
With a small organization, chances are you'll probably be the only safety person, and you might be reporting into a HR manager or a HR director or an ops director. And for me, when I see the reporting lines, I always
it's important. Yeah.
Yes, that I always check the
Yeah.
reporting lines because you don't want a situation where you're not giving that room to manage safety because it's conflicting.
With,
so it's always safety versus
operations.
production, or safety versus operations, or safety versus manufacturing manager. I don't want that. I want a situation where I'm reporting directly into a safety person, whether they are really safety people, but as long as the title is a safety manager role or a safety director role, that's always one of the things I look out for. I'm not saying reporting into someone who is in ops or HR is the wrong thing, or a risk director or whatever, if that's the way the organization is structured. But my preference is I always looked for roles that reported into a safety organization or head, because I wanted to learn. That was always what I looked out for.
That was your strategy.
Yes.
Constance will talk probably more about this because she's done our research on safety representation within the corporate board of organizations. Because you were talking about operations director. What I found out in my career is, even as health and safety director, you still report to ops most of the time before it then goes to board level. There are very few organizations
That
where
have
there
that
is a safety
Direct line.
independent direct to the CEO. Very
yes,
few, especially
yes.
in corporate big companies.
Yes,
There are very few that
actually,
do.
you're very right, Ayo, because I did my doctorate in health and safety, representation of health and safety management in strategic leadership and corporate governance. So that just saw me working the last 4 years, working with members of boards, and then looking at how we can adequately or probably rethink the representation of health and safety in corporate boards, really. And I is right when he says most of the HSC, a few times when I saw HSC directors, really, a few HSC directors I was opportunity to interview always still had that tie with operations, ops director,
Technical
Ops
director,
VP.
engineering
VP.
director.
So there was never really a
Yeah.
direct link
To the
into the
CEO.
board.
CEO.
Do you get? It was usually reporting to someone to report into the CEO, which reports. Do you understand? So yeah, I think it's very rare to find that independent standing. And I interviewed quite a number of organizations, and to be honest, there was only one that I found an independent HSC standing where this goes straight into the board.
So I'm really proud of your career. One of the things that I really want to highlight here to the people listening is, and which I've learned from you, is the fact of the change and the influence you're able to bring to the organization, because the way you manage your team is even inspirational to myself. And I'm thinking,
good
like,
practice,
you know
to be
what,
honest.
this
Absolute
is
good
wonderful.
practice,
Like, I'm the kind of person, I love people to know things as well. Now, tell us
Tell
about
us
your
the challenges.
I
Really.
think one of the things is just people's misconception that, one, because you're young, you don't have enough experience or know-how. And then two is...
Absolute, tell me about that, actually. Thinking about it.
Yeah, so like I said, joining an organization where people have, or where, at the start of the meeting, someone introduces himself or herself and says, oh, hi, I'm this, 20 years here, 50 years here. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay,
how old
6 months. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I get you, yeah.
Totally, that then makes everyone not value your input because they feel
think that
you don't have a lot to give or to bring. Again, that's one of the things I find as a challenge, because you have to constantly prove yourself, be more assertive in meetings and stuff like that. We shouldn't ever have to do that. It should be a fair playground for everyone. Particularly where you're there in an advisory role. But as you can imagine, I find that quite challenging, particularly when you're new to an organization and you're still trying to source things out and build relationships, not free relationships, and then you're being challenged on certain things. So again, I think that's one of the things I have found as a challenge. So for me, I'm not yet 40, but you come into an organization, you might have people who are way older, more tenured, and that's is being put into into perspective when they speak to you. Another thing I have found as a challenge is just where you have to manage upwards,
Yeah.
particularly where you have a direct line manager who may not have the knowledge and experience,
as you
skills
do.
and attitude that you have or bring
Yeah.
to the team or to the safety organization. So again, running in that direction and not being able to educate them as you go along,
Yeah.
not making them look or sound stupid in meetings, just helping them learn and sharing your knowledge and helping them leverage on your experience. Because for me, some people can get really intimidated where you're confident, where you're assertive, where you know your stuff and you're able to articulate it clearly in meetings.
Yes.
And if they don't have that, they might have the title, they might have the the title and the recognition, but they don't have the recognition and the respect.
Yeah.
So again, those can start bringing the worst out of them, particularly if they are not secure in themselves. So again, those are the kind of challenges I have had in my career. So making sure that you're informing them and educating them before they go into meetings. So I've had managers in the past where we do a pre-meet before the main meet. So that main meeting, so that at least they are well informed, aware of everything they should be doing or not saying and all that in terms of the details, because sometimes because of how busy they are, they don't know the details. You know the details, and it's always bringing them to that sweet spot. So those are the kind of things. If you have someone who doesn't leverage on your experience, you would always have that clash, that tension every single time. But if you have someone who is respectful, acknowledges you're the technical person they come to for advice, I don't think that should be a problem.
And you also should have good stakeholder management skills.
Absolutely.
To be honest.
So those are the two challenges for me.
Thank you very much, Bear, for that insight. And it's been many years, and like I said, I'm really super proud of what you've achieved and what you're still going to achieve in the future. I hope that in the next 2-3 years we'll be picking together and having this conversation, bring you back into the studio, and let's talk about what you've achieved from now till then. But do you have any last words for our audience today?
So I'll just split it into 3 stages. So if you're starting off your career, don't give up. Take every opportunity you have to learn and to grow. If it's a task nobody else in the team wants to do, do it. Because all those times I did that, I feel like I learned something, and it then helps me in another job where I thought, oh, I hate this so much. I don't know why everyone is giving it to me. And then I go to another job and
you're happy to know that.
I realize that, well, if I didn't know this then, I wouldn't be able to function now. So anything nobody wants to do, take it,
It's all right.
do it, enjoy that phase of your life. Like, it can never come back, and you will always refer back and laugh over it. If you're in the middle of your career, again, be a member of IOSH, seize the opportunity to learn, network. I think what I've come to realize, not all jobs are advertised. If you want to move sideways, if you want to move upwards, you can't do it on your own. If you're in the middle of your career right at this stage, please build your network. Go for conferences, attend meetings, speak to people on LinkedIn, reach out. Just every opportunity you get to meet people, take it. Take it. So I think first one is networking. The second one, in my opinion, is share your achievements. I think LinkedIn is a perfect tool. I have people where I have posted stuff on LinkedIn and they've reached out. And that's, to me, every day, like I say, is a school day. Every day is an interview day as well. You might have someone who is headhunting. It's been liked by one of your contacts or your connections, and it then snowballs, and you get to see all the people who have seen your posts. Absolutely. I think this is very, very important. Never burn bridges. No matter what I always say, no matter where you go, someone will always have a positive or negative sentiment. Just try as much as possible that if they ever had to say something about you, it will be positive. So in terms of your work ethics, in terms of your moral values, they would be able to say, oh, if it's Pearl, I trust her. I'm not so sure about this, but at least in terms of delivering the work,
Yes.
they trust you.
Yeah.
So for me, always advise, always as much as possible, maintain relationships internally, because some people feel, well, I'm leaving the organization now.
What do I care?
What do I care? People
Give me the
move
bridge.
around.
Give me a bazooka. I want to
Yeah,
blow it up.
blow it
Blow it
up.
up.
Yeah.
And then finally, for the last set of people is, people who are more advanced, 15, 20 years up in terms of experience. Carry people along, mentor, coach. There are so many people who are coming into safety who have no experience. They are not given the opportunity. They now have 5 years under the belt, but they still don't know safety. So if you're in that fortunate position where you have good work experience in safety, 15 years to 20 years and above, teach someone. And that's why I'm so passionate about the apprenticeship, because I just feel like nobody showed me the ropes. You more or less just learned on the whim,
Yeah.
and you pushed
Yeah.
yourself every single
Learning
day.
on the
Yeah.
job.
So any opportunity you get, there are so many people who are hungry on LinkedIn who are saying, oh, I'm looking for my first safety job, I'm looking for a mentor, or they reach out to you in your DM asking for help. Please help. Like if you're tenured, put yourself out there. Help. Sign up to all the various mentoring platforms for health and safety. I think IOSH has one.
Yeah.
A lot of universities have got
Shirley
some
Parsons
as well.
has one, and Principal People have one.
Yeah.
Find all the different mentoring platforms where they've got people who are just fresh out of the military or fresh out of uni, and help someone grow, help someone find their path in safety.
Yeah.
Thank
you,
so
Constance.
much. Yeah. Thank you very much, Pearl. I think we've literally covered everything when it comes to workplace and how to succeed. To be honest, you've told us a lot. And the interesting part for me is you're not just speaking theory, you're speaking the things that you do, the things that you've done, which is great, and people can relate to those. So yeah, we just want to say thank you very much for your time. Thanks for all the insight. Thanks for all the laughs and everything. But yeah, it's really been a great time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the courage coming to the studio to tell us all about yourself, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors as well.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. It's been really good. I think I've been thinking of opportunities to give more, back to EHS or WHS as we call it now. But I'm really pleased to be here. So thank you so much.